Hi and welcome. In this recording, we're going to take a look at a custom claim data source, leveraging a database for claims values. We start in the Curity Admin UI by going to Facilities, and we're going to add a separate data source here that holds the claim values that we want. So we'll add a type JDBC here because I have a Postgres database. Just need to set an appropriate connection string here, and we'll tweak the attribute query here to get the values that we want. There's a default one in here, but I'm going to select star from this customers table that I have, and we're going to use the subject as the key. We scroll down here, we got the authentication for the database itself. So we have a database connection configured. We can now go to the token service here and claims providers. Create a new claims provider, name that customers also, and it's going to be a data source. And here we can pick out the data source that we just created. Next step is to look at these scopes and claims. We'll start by creating a scope that we want to use. I'm going to call this customer. This customer scope in itself is going to be mapped to two claims. So we can create a new claim here. Call it account status. Now we get to choose the claims provider here. So we'll select the customer's claims provider that we just created. And then we get to select the attribute from that data source that we want to map to this claim. It's actually the same name as the claim itself. We could do transformation here, but I'm not going to do that for now. Can close that, and then we have our claim there. We'll create the next one here. Customer type, same situation. Select our claims provider, and then select the attribute from that. It happens to be the same name here also. Customer type. We'll add that attribute. No transformation, and we're done with creating the claims. Now we can see two warnings here. We haven't assigned these two claims. The first thing to do is to actually map them to our customer scope. So we'll add both of these to our customer scope. We still have the warning that they're not assigned. That's because they're not assigned to a token type. So we can drag and drop these in to the token that we want. Map them to the token. I'm going to do this to the ID token, so now we can see that they end up in the ID token. Now if we go back to the client I have here, under scopes and claims, we can add our customer scope to this client, and we can then see here what the result of the ID token would be if the client requested a customer scope. If we commit these changes, if we go back to the token designer here and take one claim here, for example, if I go into edit mode of this claim, we have this run test button. So I can actually here go in and test this. We can say that the subject is Alice. We're requesting the customer scope, maybe the OpenID scope, and we can choose what client to test. We now see what the value result is going to be for this claim, given that the client ID is demo and the subject is Alice. If we change this to John Doe and run it, we see that the account status is inactive. And this is essentially it's fetching these values from the database. So this is a handy way of testing that we are actually getting the values out that we want. If we switch to the database here, you can see that Alice is in fact active and John Doe is in fact inactive. Over in OAuth tools, we can test this. So we'll run a code flow here using the demo client that we have. You got the OpenID scope here. We'll add the customer scope that we just created. And if we run this, I have single sign-on, so there's no authentication here. We can see that the customer type claim is in fact in here, as well as the account status. We go back into the database here for Alice and we change her customer type to gold. Commit the change to the database, go back and rerun our code flow. As expected, we can see that the customer type is now changed to gold. So this is a way to configure a data source for claims values, as well as configuring a scope with two claims where the values are fetched from the data source and mapped, in this case, to an ID token, but we could also map those claims to other tokens in our configuration. Thanks for watching, and let us know through the channels if you have any questions or comments.